We have heard in the news recently about the emerging concern over nuclear warfare. Now, everyone knows how powerful these nuclear weapons are, and we've seen the Hollywood movies that further evoke this dreadful fear. Yet there's a more likely threat that people don't consider in the context of the nuclear threat, and that threat is an EMP attack. EMP stands for electromagnetic pulse. Thus, an EMP attack is an electromagnetic pulse by a hostile nation with the intention of destroying the electronics of their adversary. To understand why an EMP pulse is so destructive, let's think of the analogy of water inside pipes. Every pipe contains a certain amount of water pressure. So in a very extreme situation where the pressure is too great, that pipe will simply burst and the water will leak out. In the same way, electronics have certain pathways that are metallic on a very tiny scale. So if too much energy is directed at those pathways, the metallic elements become destroyed. So how exactly would an EMP attack occur? Well, a country could launch a nuclear weapon and detonate it high in the atmosphere. As a result, it's called a HEMP, high altitude magnetic pulse. Now, it would not directly kill anyone, but it would destroy a huge percentage of electronics. Make no mistake about it, the EMP would not directly harm people, but the after effects would be with food shortages, hospital, police, and government. All of that would be severely impacted. So nobody knows exactly how destructive it would be. The power grid might go down, and the world as we know it would simply end. Unfortunately, we simply don't know the impact. Some people say most electronics would be destroyed, and others assign a much smaller percentage for the impact. Either way, it would cause massive disruption in the short term. In 1962, a large nuclear bomb was detonated about 400 kilometers over the Pacific Ocean. And then the islands of Hawaii, which were about 900 miles away, actually experienced an EMP effect because the bomb damaged hundreds of streetlights and telecommunications equipment. In fact, a high impact detonation by a nuclear bomb is not the only source of a potential EMP. An EMP could result from a huge solar flare, so it could occur naturally. Even if the world is not at war, this would remain a natural threat to civilization. So what should you do? Well, you can use a Faraday cage, which shields against the EMP. You can either buy a Faraday cage online or even build one yourself by using a box and then wrapping it several times, approximately 5 to 6 layers, with aluminum foil. It's not hard at all. Then you place whatever you want inside the box and you make sure that it doesn't touch the aluminum foil. Think about if you have all this radio equipment, flashlights to prepare, but it would be worthless after an EMP attack. So the idea is to place all your emergency electronic equipment inside the Faraday cage. In the event of an EMP attack, your electronic communications equipment will be protected. You may also want to think about purchasing a solar generator and a solar panel, which would provide you with electricity to power your radios, recharge your flashlights, and perhaps even your cell phone or laptop. The ability to access electricity will keep you empowered to make sound decisions. So how will you know if an EMP attack has actually occurred? Well, everything electronic would simply stop working. Your phone might not be powered on suddenly. Your lights would be turned off. Nothing will turn on. You'll, in fact, go to drive your car and it won't start. It might even begin to feel like you're in the Twilight Zone, if you remember that old show, until communication starts flowing. You're not going to find a grand announcement on television, since television will probably go down. And the internet might be down as well, or you can't access the internet. After 2 or 3 weeks with no power, food will begin running out, and this is where the real concern begins. I recommend that everyone look into obtaining ham radios, which has a transmission range of about 3 to 5 miles for handheld devices, and up to 1,000 or even more miles for base stations, depending on wattage and the size of the antenna. So then get a Faraday cage and make it a practice to put your electronics in that shielded box. You can even construct a shield carrying case for your solar panels, because that too would be vulnerable to an EMP. Additionally, if you have an electronic safe, you should begin thinking about creating shielding for the electronic keypad on that safe. What good is it if you have all that equipment in a safe and then you can't access your safe after an EMP? How are you going to open up a safe that has a destroyed electronic keypad? You can protect the electronic keypad by applying 5 to 6 layers of aluminum foil over it, and then once you place it over it, using a ton of strong magnets to keep the aluminum covering in place. Make sure it's sealed very well. By having those multiple layers of aluminum foil, it's going to absorb the energy of the EMP and prevent it from reaching your keypad. There are plenty of videos on YouTube about the risk of an EMP attack and how to protect against it. The key is to begin planning and gaining that knowledge today. Hi, I'm Grant Pole with 5D Survival. Thank you for listening.